All right, as promised, the great Taylor Twellman joins us again here on the State of the Union. He and his enormous noggin are fitting into the screen here. We appreciate him. You know him. You love him. Well, at least you know him, and you certainly know his face and his voice when it comes to all things MLS over there for Apple. And we find ourselves on the verge of yet another season, but a very special season, the 30th season for Major League Soccer, Taylor, and welcome. All right, give us a couple of things to think about when it comes to this 30th season of Major League Soccer. A couple big picture things. If you're bringing people into the tent, which I know you love to do.
Buddy, you will resonate with this. If you would have asked us about 15, 20 years ago when the MLS owners were assessing Major League Soccer and trying to figure out expansion, I can promise you two markets they desperately wanted to get into. St. Louis, Missouri, which they did so a couple years ago, and now San Diego. So I find it fitting that the 30th year, the 30th franchise is a market that they've been talking about for a long, long time. San Diego, California, has been around since the 70s. It's always been a market where soccer's in the fabric of the city, no matter what level their first division's playing at, and their appreciation for the national team. When you look at the viewership numbers for the U.S. men's and women's national team, San Diego is always in the top 10. So I think it's fitting that in the 30th year of this league, not only is it a league not surviving anymore, but thriving. I think it just fits that it's San Diego. I also find it intriguing of what Inter Miami is going to do. You and I did this exact same podcast to preview last year, and I told you I just don't know if they're going to win more than one trophy, while everyone else has them winning 3, 4, 5 trophies. And it didn't happen. Suarez is a year older. Messi's a year older. The roster's not as deep. I don't know if Messi and company can beat their record for most points in the regular season, but more importantly, he's got World Cup qualifying. They've got the Club World Cup. What do they look like at the end of the year? A bunch of eyeballs are going to be on this. Whether or not Messi plays the full 2026 season, none of us know what he's going to do during that World Cup season. I think this one is MLS Cup or bust. They know that. And I'll be shocked if there isn't a move or two to try to make them a little deeper in that progress.
Quick follow-up. You mentioned San Diego, and you told us what you think about Inter Miami. So where does San Diego ultimately finish up? Is this a St. Louis type of thing where they burst on the scene and defy all expectations? Okay, so this is a much more normal type of expansion team that struggles, which is mostly what happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Alexi, nobody, including myself, and St. Louis raised me. If you would have told me they were going to win the Western Conference, I would have looked at you in the camera and said, I don't know if they make the playoffs. They were the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. I don't see that from San Diego this year. I also don't see Cincinnati in the wooden spoon for 3 years either. I think there are weaker teams in the West. I think this team is set up. They just beat the New York Red Bulls in their final tune-up game. That was the New York Red Bulls' first team. Mm-hmm. They beat them 6-0 in preseason. I think San Diego is going to fight for a playoff spot, and I think if you get into the playoffs, it's a success. Now, ask me that question if Kevin De Bruyne ends up in San Diego this summer, which is still a real talked about rumor, then that changes. But I think Chucky Lozano is Carlos Vela 2.0. I think Dreyer is a fantastic signing. Now, how do the other pieces come together? That remains to be seen. I just think it's in the middle of the expansion spectrum. I don't think it's Atlanta. I don't think it's LAFC. But I also don't think it's Minnesota United. I don't think it's Cincinnati with how they came into their first seasons.
Got
it. Taylor, it's been a crazy offseason. Some big incoming and outgoing transfers, but the new wrinkle with cash for players was all these big moves within MLS, Lucho Acosta, Vander, Joveljic. What do you make of cash for players, and what do you make of this offseason as a whole?
Mosse, I love it. I love it. More so because all of us have been trying to grow Major League Soccer outside our United States and North America bubble. I think this rule and this transaction mechanism now allows for people outside the United States and outside of Major League Soccer in Canada to say, hang on a minute, now I understand that. I also think you get what the players are worth. Evander was worth 12 to 13 million. Cincinnati goes and does that. Dejan Joveljic was worth $4 to $6 million because Liga MX teams were trying to get him in his final season. Sporting Kansas City jumps in there. So I also think it speaks to the value of the players. I think the players are going to really benefit from this, but also I think it just creates more content for all of us on the outside to really talk about and understand. And if you're Luciano Acosta, be careful what you wish for. I think Dallas, rightfully so, go get it.
Hold on a second. Did you say that Evander's worth $12 million? You really think he's worth $12 million in terms of a transfer fee, even intra-MLS type of transfer?
I do. From the phone calls yes. From the phone calls they got, Alexi, biggest reason why Evander was upset with Portland is people were calling around saying, is 14 to 16 million enough? And his dad, precarious figure, says, I want it in the contract that there's a 15 million transfer fee. And Portland, that's where the disagreement started. Then obviously he went public, post-playoffs and whatnot. I actually think Cincinnati gets a bargain because I think if Evander's on the open market and he's coming from Copenhagen or he's coming from Champions League or even South America, I think they're paying 16 to 18 million for him. And I think this is a bargain, and I think he may be the pickup of the offseason.
Awesome. All right. Off the field, we got a couple of big names coming back into the league, I guess it is, when you look in San Jose with Bruce Arena, and he's got his hands full. He's a living legend, and he's done it before, but he's got his hands full with this San Jose team and the San Jose Earthquakes that, let's be honest, have not been relevant for a long time. And then we got another former U.S. men's national team coach, Greg Berhalter, in Chicago. He's also got his hands full. These are both reclamation types of projects. How do they do with their respective teams, you think?
I love the fact that both of these men were picked for their respective projects. Listen, if you're San Jose and you're operating now in a Western Conference where you're barely talked about and you're barely observed because of how you've, one, built your roster, and two, with what other teams are doing, if you need to start over and build a culture, I don't care if Bruce Arena's 150 years old, he's the guy that you call. Now, is the roster good enough to compete? I don't know that answer as of right now, but I do know Bruce Arena knows what the hell he's doing. And I do know that Bruce Arena is going to push the right buttons to maximize that group. Now, the question is, as I just said, whether or not the group has enough. But you got Chicho Arango for 50 cents to $1. You got Joseph Martinez coming in. He goes out and gets guys that he brought to New England, and Dave Romney, Mark Anthony Kaye, Ian Harkes. Alexi, I think that's going to be an interesting one to watch, and I think they're fighting for a playoff spot. I don't think that's a long shot. For Chicago, listen, Mansueto's done everything he can to try to bring them back, and it's fantastic that he is now the owner of the Chicago Fire. But the way he operated and the way that team operated in the first couple of seasons under his ownership, it just wasn't good enough. He knew that, but he wanted to time this decision at the right time. And I think he got a great guy in Greg Berhalter. Now, Greg Berhalter wants the keys to the castle. He wants to buy his groceries, cook his groceries, and serve it to the people as well. That's totally fine. I think he has shown in Columbus that he can do that. Now, I don't know where the roster is at the moment. You're asking me on February 19th, but I do know the ideology of Greg Berhalter, what he wants to get out of it. If I'm a Chicago Fire fan, I've got to be pretty positive in the direction that they're going. And let me make a big picture point on this. Major League Soccer is exponentially better when the Chicago Fire are where they were when I was playing in this league, Alexi, when you were playing in this league. And Joe Mansueto knows that. They've got to come back. There's absolutely no reason in Major League Soccer in the 30th year that Chicago shouldn't be top 3 or 4 markets in the East. And you can make an argument, top 5 or 6 markets in the United States. I think that's ultimately the goal by hiring Greg Berhalter.
All right, so this is the final question on that then. When all is said and done at the end of the year, who makes a better dish? Bruce Arena in San Jose or Greg Berhalter in Chicago?
The Eastern Conference is more difficult. So Greg Berhalter could have a better season than San Jose, but he might be fighting for a lower seed in the Eastern Conference.
Man.
So right now, saying that
on me, come on.
No,
Man.
I'm just saying. Well, follow me on this. San Jose can make the playoffs with 41 points, and Greg has 49 or 50, and they're in the 9th seed. Like, I'm just saying, it is possible with how the MLS playoffs work.
Suck it up, Buttercup. Figure it out.
San Jose gets more bang for their buck. That was a long-winded way of me coming around to I think San Jose gets more bang for their buck.
Okay.
Taylor, last year Messi was the 11th straight foreigner to win MVP. The last American to win it was Mike McGee in 2013. We've talked about MLS becoming a buying league for foreigners, a selling league for Americans. There are people who think that should change in the lead up to the 26th World Cup. They're advocating for MLS to try to sign some big U.S. international players, your Pulisic's, McKinney's, Reyna's. What do you make of that?
One, it's a great question. Two, I think it's a crux of an issue, right? This league started with the gentleman that's next to you and his generation of building something in 1996 that helped the American player grow, that helped the American player find his way to the international market. In the first 15 years, you'd have to say it was really good. It still is. It's just a different kettle of fish. I think the American player has to find a way to be at the forefront of some of these MLS rosters. And I actually have a way to do that. I firmly believe that if you have a homegrown player and he turns into a designated player, that designated player spot shouldn't count to the roster. Majority of the designated players right now are foreign. But what if it's an American homegrown that gets you that? Now that actually puts an emphasis on developing Americans. Another one is a U22 signing. You sign a U22 player and he turns in to a DP. I'd argue let's add some flexibility there. You've worked it. You've developed a young player. His market value is such that he can now be paid as a DP. Again, Mosse, that's going to help the American player. I don't know if Pulisic, McKinney, and whatnot need to come back to Major League Soccer. We saw that in 2014. I didn't think that U.S. team was going to get out of their group with Portugal, Germany, and Ghana. And guess what they did with Michael Bradley, Clint Dempsey, Josie Altidore coming back to Major League Soccer. I just think on a macro level, the American player's got to find his way in Major League Soccer. It's a little bit more difficult than it was 15 years ago when I was playing. And I don't think Major League Soccer should lose sight of that. But that comes up to the academy player coming through. Kevin Sullivan's 15. He's going to be a huge part of the Philadelphia Union this year. Man City called him the best 14-year-old in the world. Mosse, what happens if he scores 6, 7, 8 goals? Yeah, we get it. They're selling him to Manchester City, but Major League Soccer is still playing a part in that. It's just a different kettle of fish than when I was playing 15 years ago.
All right. You just made a couple of really interesting suggestions, which is interesting in and of itself that you made them. But we love to tell people how to spend their money.
Yes, we do. Yep.
So, and also we love to tell people what to do, whether it's MLS or anything else. So I guess it's a twofold question. A lot of talk about MLS possibly going to a European schedule in the future. One, do you see that? Do you see that? All right, you already love it, but you see that happening. And then two, and this is much more American soccer, with the recent announcement from USL about them wanting to become a Division I league, and I guess on the surface, certainly competing with MLS. Do you see that happening, and how does that change the landscape of American soccer?
I think what's interesting, Alexi, is about 5-6 years ago, when we talked about changing to the European schedule, many owners would tell me there's no way it's happening. And what has really surprised me in my 20-plus years in this league is how quickly this league has evolved and grown and is willing to change. I think a lot of that comes on the, I would say, doorstep of Don Garber being the commissioner in building this league where it is. 5-6 years ago, if I would have asked that same question you just asked me, every owner would have said, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to happen. The fact that they're looking at it, the fact that they're seriously looking at it, tells you that they're now a player on the world market. And why do you need to change your schedule to the top 5 leagues in the world, particularly in Europe? It's because it means you're going to make more money on your incoming or outgoing transfers. And incoming, you're not going to be paying the premium because you need to make a decision before the end of the transfer window over there. I do think it happens, but I think they've got to figure out ways where certain markets got to play their games. And the other part to that, Alexi and Mosse, is you're playing your most important games away from the NFL. Anytime you can do that, I think you resonate and you become a real player in the vernacular of American sports and what that is. The USL thing's as intriguing as anything. And Alexi, you've said this for a long time, and I couldn't agree with you more now that I've gotten older, is that, listen, you want to build a better mousetrap? Go ahead, try and do it. Fine. I think this is all USL looking at saying, hang on a minute. The World Cup is here in North America. We want to use that momentum and do it. Now, Paul McDonough was asked many questions about what it's going to look like and how it's going to go. And he flat out said, we got to get our ducks in a row and we got to figure that out. Major League Soccer is in 30 markets in its 30th year. Their growth and their expansion and how quickly that has happened, I think we'd be remiss not to talk about it. And I think it's a compliment that USL is looking at and saying, hang on, we want to give you some competition. What that looks like, Alexi, I have no idea because I really haven't been given any indicators from USL and what that's going to look like.
Taylor, the last team to win back-to-back MLS Cups was the Galaxy in 2011 and 2012. They're now trying to repeat again this season. They're going to be without Ricky Puig for most of the campaign. What chance do you give the Galaxy to go back-to-back?
Mosse, my hot take is I think they're going to really be fighting for a playoff spot. I do. I look at this team. Listen, the Galaxy mantra has always been we win one and we repeat. They repeat against us. They beat us twice in 3 years, whatever it was. But my point is that the Galaxy win trophies and they want to win more. You lose Jovic, you lose Brugman, you lose Delgado. Ricky Puig, I don't care if he's healthy and back in the summer. This is a torn ACL and other ligaments. To count on Ricky Puig to be that guy immediately coming back from that ACL, from experience of seeing teammates and my family members and whatever it is, the ACL injury is a real injury. You got to really be careful what you expect. Joseph Paintsil is not ready for the first 6 to 8 weeks. So I look at this team. Yoshida's older. I just don't know. It doesn't look like a deep team to me. Marco Reus is in and out of the preseason lineups due to injury. Can you count on him to fill the gap of what Ricky Puig was last year? I think Christian Ramirez was a smart, pragmatic pickup until the summer comes, and then they can make a decision. But again, he's without Paintsil. He's without Puig. I mean, of the 3 killer Ps last year, 2 of them are going to be missed in the first 8 weeks, and 1 of them is going to be missed for more than 6 months. I think the Galaxy are going to be up against it. I just think Greg Vanning knows that and may change the system a little bit. But it wouldn't surprise me if you guys are texting me and we're talking to each other in June and July, and we're like, that's been a little bit of a slog for the defending champions.
All right, listen, you know as well as I do that every team that we did not discuss on this podcast in MLS,
they're going to be mad.
They're going to be mad. So let them be mad. But listen, by the grace of the soccer gods, you are still employed for some reason. And so I will give you the opportunity to wax poetic when it comes to your employer over there when it comes to Apple. What are we going to see as this continued experiment unfolds between the partnership of MLS and Apple going forward as they broadcast this league?
2 things, Big Red. First and foremost, this documentary that comes out February 21st, you've known me for a long time. I love watching things outside of my realm to learn, to understand. I was never a Formula One racing fan. Drive to Survive brought me in. The same producers, same directors are now doing Onside, which is a documentary on Apple TV that will debut February 21st. I've seen the first 3 or 4 episodes. Buddy, it's as good as it gets. And I think it's only fitting in the 30th year that Major League Soccer opens their doors, all access. They don't have a say in any of this. And I'm telling you, there's controversy, there's conflict, there's villains, there's everything you and I have been talking about for the last 20 years. I think Onside is really going to open its doors because of the Apple TV vehicle, and it can be seen in over 108 countries. It's going to open its doors a little bit where maybe we haven't been in those homes. The other one is the news that, listen, Apple told me when I came on board, we listen to the consumers. We're a marketing company. We're a product company. The first 2 years, there was a lot of conversation about the schedule. There was a lot of conversation that when you buy MLS Season Pass on Apple TV, you're only really seeing 1.5 games because so many games are at 7:30, 10:30 Eastern time on Saturday. You're going to see a much more of a full weekend. For instance, this weekend will start at 4:30. It was going to start at 2:30, but Miami postponed their game to 7:30. My point is there's going to be a lot of games at 2:30, 4:30 on Saturday. Then you got your MLS 360, 7:30, 10:30 Eastern, and then Sunday Night Soccer. You and I have done this for many years, whether it's at Fox, whether it's at ESPN. Apple's going to do the same thing. So there will be a standalone game on Sunday Night Soccer. We've got an hour pregame, hour postgame. And yeah, they gave me a camera where you can actually see my face this time, Alexi. So maybe we'll lose viewers, but who knows?
Sounds awesome. Sounds awesome. Mosse?
Taylor, when you came on last year, we talked about the whole MLS Cup versus Supporter Shield mishigas. You were adamant that the MLS Cup is the bigger trophy to win. So what did you make of Inter Miami getting that Club World Cup spot instead of the Galaxy, and the way FIFA handled it, waiting for Inter Miami to win the Supporter Shield and then deciding that was the criteria?
Mosse, are you surprised at all that FIFA would look at the situation and say, hang on a minute, what? So how does he play? Like, how does he get in? Listen, I think if Major League Soccer had their way, Columbus Crew's in the Club World Cup. I really do. Now, in saying that, this is the first edition of Club World Cup. When FIFA made that decision, the television rights hadn't been paid for yet. And if there's one player where you sit there and say, okay, fine, I understand it. But I don't think the criticism of Major League Soccer on that is necessarily fair, because I don't think they were fully consulted on how they should handle that. And on the other hand, again, it's Messi. It's the first edition. It's in his backyard. I don't think any single person was really surprised that FIFA said, you know what, we're going to make sure Inter Miami gets in. Now, if they had won the Supporter Shield, Mosse, we would have been having a different conversation.
All right, listen, Taylor, we got to get you out of here, but I want to end it up here with a kind of rapid fire. You've done this before, and really appreciate your time here. When it comes to like we said, the 30th season, which is just around the corner, the whistle blows this weekend, and Taylor and all the wonderful men and women in front and behind the camera will be, as you heard, giving us hours and hours and hours of content, whether it's the actual games or the behind-the-scenes stuff that's going on. All right, 2025 MLS season Golden Boot winner.
Kevin Denke.
Ooh, okay. 2025 season MVP.
Messi.
Whoa. All right. 2025.
And by the way, Alexi and Mosse, nobody's ever repeated. He would have to repeat, right? He would have to.
I mean, you wouldn't put it past him given what he's doing. Coach of the year for 2025.
Greg Berhalter.
Oh, God. I want that just for the content.
I just want, by the way, I only answered that for your clicks.
And finally, MLS Cup champion 2025.
MLS Cup champion, FC Cincinnati.
All right, FC Cincinnati. Every time that you come on this show, and you and everybody that comes on the show, I ask this question, and I ask it again because in time, either you have evolved, maybe changed, want to add, want to subtract. Best and worst thing about American soccer, my friend?
The best thing is I don't think we've reached our pinnacle yet, which is as exciting as anything else. And the worst thing is we love to eat our own. We love a good home-cooked meal, and we love to eat our own. I took that right out of your playbook, my friend.
I love it. Now, listen, we can't let you go because I know that you live in Greater Boston, and you are a big hockey fan. We are recording this on Wednesday.
So
tomorrow,
good.
USA versus Canada. Who wins, and what have you thought of this tweak, if you will, to the NHL? I know we're not calling it an all-star game, but obviously with the numbers that are coming in, it has gone over great guns both here and north of the border.
Alexi, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And it's only fitting that two St. Louis guys, two brothers, Kachucks, would absolutely turn this thing and flip it on its head. Big Red, it's as good as it gets. Tip of the cap to the NHL. Because quite honestly, I haven't watched the All-Star game since Pavel Bure was in that for the Vancouver Canucks. So the reality is it's real. I was texting with Sean McDonough, who's the lead broadcaster for this. He said it's been better than anyone at ESPN and ABC thought it was going to be. I hope Thursday night that every single American in Boston claps and cheers for the Canadian national anthem just to show them we are different. Because you booing the national anthem, miss me with that.
Right? Oh, my goodness. Are you going to go?
I am doing everything in my power to do so. I just need to change a flight that doesn't get flipped over and changed. So if I get there, I'm sending you pictures.
All right. And who wins?
U.S. Come on. There's no way. Now, I'm nervous, right? But, McAvoy's out with an upper body injury, so I'm a little nervous, but I'd be stunned if Canada goes in there and wins that.
All right. Come for the soccer, stay for the hockey with Taylor Twellman.
Mosse, do you have any idea what we're talking about right now?
Oh, absolutely. I was into it on Saturday. Big win in Montreal. By the way, I love the idea that Canada are the bad guys here when the U.S. president is openly talking about annexing them. But in your guys' world, I guess that's the way it is.
Hey, listen, just don't put the national anthem.
Right, exactly. I would love for the folks in Boston to kind of do it because, as we know, in Boston, they would do it with kind of a smirk on their face. It would just be absolutely beautiful.
And
Listen,
they'll do it with an accent. How many times have you heard someone boo with an accent?
Exactly. All right, the great Taylor Twellman once again here on the State of the Union podcast. Check him out this weekend and all through the upcoming MLS season. Thank you, my friend.
Hey, guys, just so you know, that's not a Chicago Bears hat. That is a Colgate hat.
That's
a Colgate hat.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.